On 12 News at 4, we are all about bringing you solutions and empowering you to better your lives. Every day, we bring some of the Valley's most experienced professionals to discuss trending topics on health, ways to save money and improve your financial life, the law, relationships. We even have an expert on pets. And it's not just us asking the questions, we give you, the viewer, the opportunity to weigh in and ask questions too. Now, we're putting all these segments together in one place for you. This is Ask the Expert. Well, it's a trend that has really exploded recently, tween skincare. Parents, you know what I'm talking about if you've got a tween. From face masks, serums, and creams to brands like Drunk Elephant, Laneige, and Bubble. For kids, companies have racked up more than $9 billion in sales in the past year, and social media is really a magnet for preteens. But should parents be worried about using too much too young? Let's ask the expert. Joining me now is dermatologist Dr. Brenda Letowski of Clear Dermatology. All right, I can so relate to this. Brenda, so what is behind this huge craze?
Well, Tram, the kids are taking selfies. They're sending them to all their friends. They're looking at them constantly. They're on social media. They're seeing their peers do the skincare. They're seeing influencers do it.
Yeah.
And then because they have screens, a lot of companies have realized this demographic is huge and are actually targeting the tweens for marketing.
So as a parent of a tween, is using these products, I mean, is that something that you'd recommend, or should parents be pumping the brakes a bit?
I think if the tween really wants to get started in skincare, it's okay as long as the parent is kind of overseeing it. It's not an obsession. We're making sure they're using safe products and the products fit within the budget of the family, then I would go for it.
Okay, but on the flip side, if they're using products that maybe aren't made for, their young skin, their beautiful glowing skin. Yes. I mean, what would the consequences be?
Well, if they are using products with active ingredients like glycolic acid,
yes,
salicylic acid, retinol, they can get irritation of the skin. Mm-hmm. And so their skin actually gets red, it gets really sensitive. Then the tweens get really frustrated because they actually feel like they're looking worse instead of looking better.
Yeah, and even allergic reactions like you were saying. Yeah.
Yes, so allergic reactions, a lot of the natural products have things that we can become allergic to.
Which is so wild because they tout it as natural and you think, oh, it's safe.
It is kind of counterintuitive, but it happens all the time, and these allergies then can be lifelong.
Wow.
And then finally, I think we really don't know the long-term repercussions of the chemicals found in these products and applying them from such a young age.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so now what do you recommend for tweens when it comes to, I'm thinking a more simple skincare?
Yes, exactly. Keep it simple. So number one, they should wash their face twice a day. Mm-hmm. This will help combat oil as the tweens go into puberty. Number two, use a moisturizer twice a day after washing. This will replenish the moisture from the skin from washing, and then this will also set them up for success for their adult skincare regimen. Most importantly is use a sunscreen in the morning. And I like to recommend mineral-based sunscreens. Oh. And there are even tinted sunscreens. They have kind of a makeup finish. A lot of tweens really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And the tint can also cover any redness from blemishes.
Okay, and also on that graphic, I mean, it said to be paraben and fragrance-free. That's important too, right?
I think so. Just again, thinking about the chemicals they're exposed to and reducing the risk of allergies.
Are there certain products or brand names that you recommend?
There are actually a lot of good over-the-counter drugstore brands. I really like Cetaphil products, mm-hmm, CeraVe products, La Roche-Posay, Kiehl's.
Yeah.
And you can go on Google or ChatGPT to see which specific products are paraben and fragrance-free.
Oh, that's interesting. On a side note, I'm just thinking, when I was a tween, eons ago, I And I think most of our generation, we didn't even think about stuff like that. You know what I mean? I don't even think we wore sunscreen until we were, I don't know, maybe at least well into high school.
I agree, but you know, when these tweens are wearing sunscreen, it's actually so good because they are preventing sunburns, which is huge in preventing skin cancers.
Yeah.
And they're lowering their risk of everyday sun exposure, which again prevents skin cancers and slows down aging.
Okay, so it's okay to use it a little young. All right, Brenda, thank you so much. Now to Ask the Expert, here to answer your questions live on the air is dermatologist Dr. Brenda Letowski of Clear Dermatology. All right, our first question, what is an affordable treatment for acne on areas below the neck?
On the body, I like to use benzoyl peroxide, which is something that's found over the counter.
Okay.
A common brand, a very available brand, is Panoxyl.
Okay.
And so I like for teens to apply it in the shower, rub it everywhere they're getting the acne, let it sit while they do all their other shower stuff, and then rinse it off. Make sure that they were using a white towel in case it leaves bleach stains.
Oh, good idea. All right. Next question. My 10-year-old daughter wants to use cleanser, toner, moisturizer, and mask. She's 10. Is this okay, or is she hurting her skin? Is that too much?
That's very ambitious for a 10-year-old. I think as long as we are using paraben-free products, fragrance-free products, and as long as she has no medical diagnoses of the skin, if she's just using something hydrating, that would be fine. I would make sure that the toner does not have alcohol in it.
Ooh, okay. All right. Chloe in Phoenix asks, what is the safest product for nose and forehead acne in teens?
There's actually an ingredient called Differin, or a brand called Differin.
I've heard of that.
It used to be prescription. It went over the counter, and it's fairly gentle. It's a retinoid. It's fairly gentle and very safe for acne of this type.
Oh, interesting. All right. Heather in Phoenix asks, is good old soap and water preferable to specific cleanser products? Yeah, whatever happened to that, right?
I love this question. Actually, good old-fashioned soap and water can strip the skin of moisture. So I do recommend a dedicated facial cleanser.
Oh, okay. Good to know. This next one, as their skin changes with puberty, what kinds of products do tweens need?
So of course with puberty, we're gonna see more oil on the skin. So I usually recommend a salicylic acid cleanser. That way we're putting on a gentle ingredient, we're washing it off, so we're still not stripping the skin of moisture. And there are also some mattifying products out there that will help control shine throughout the day.
Great. Excellent, excellent advice. You know what? We have more questions, so you'll be able to go back in our green room in just a sec. Don't leave us just yet. And then answer all of our viewer questions. So thank you so much for sending those. We appreciate it. And on this Money Saving Monday, we are talking about tipping. Did you know the average tip in the U.S. is about 18%? The state that tips the most is California at 23%. The state that tips the least, Illinois at 14%. In case you're wondering how well Arizonans tip, well, we rank 4th highest in the country at almost 21%. That's according to a recent article from USA Today. But doesn't it seem like these days a lot more places are asking for a tip? What's more, 2 out of 3 Americans have a negative view about tipping, and 15% of people are actually confused about who and how much to tip, according to Bankrate. So let's cut the confusion and ask the expert. Joining me now is financial consultant Angelica Prescott. Okay, Angelica, this is such a talker, really everywhere, right? So let's start out of the gate. What constitutes a tip?
Well, when you have a good experience somewhere, sometimes you just want to say a thank you. So a tip is a financial way to say muchas gracias. Thank you.
Okay, but when you say, when you've had good service,
yes.
If you don't have good service,
you don't
are
have
you
to feel
obligated?
Absolutely not. They do not.
Like zero?
They don't pay your light bill. So as long as you're able to state, hey, it's okay, I didn't really have a good experience, kindly, you're not even posting a bad review on social media. So your lack of tip might just be the only thing that hurts.
Yeah, okay. So when should you tip?
You should tip when it kind of gives you an aha moment. For example, if something was supposed to take 5 minutes, it took 3. If someone was considering something else you're going to do and gave you a tip about the next step you're going to take.
Yeah.
If someone's willing to give you some kind of sound advice, hey, it's going to rain here, take our umbrella, we'll walk you to the car. Any kind of experience that truly shows more than just a basic ABC,
Yeah.
I think requires for you to show gratitude.
It's like extra.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went extra for me. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about how much extra we are talking about.
Yes.
We've got some rules of thumb here. Restaurant. When it comes to restaurants, how much are we looking at?
I think 20% is a decent amount to tip, especially when someone is serving you for the next hour and a half. If you asked for something, they were right on the spot to get it for you. And even if it's full, they're still managing to come around and check if you're okay. Let's give them about 20%.
Okay, now when it comes to the bartender,
I usually do $1 a drink. And mind you, some people do more.
I was gonna say, because I always thought it was maybe like a restaurant, 20% tip, and
Yeah,
no?
but that also keeps you track on how many drinks you've had. If you're on your 17th dollar, this
Yeah.
might be their 17th drink. So I think it's a good way to continue giving that money directly to the bartender.
Okay, interesting. All right, when it comes to carry out,
Yes.
this is where a lot of people do get confused.
Well, yeah, 5 to 10% is decent for you to do there. I mean, sometimes they're bringing it to your house and they're coming faster than they normally would. That's a great win.
That I see.
Yes.
But a lot of times when I've, ordered carry out to be, picked up at the restaurant, am I obligated to tip? Because they'll ask for a tip.
If you're standing to receive your food, I don't recommend that it's important or necessary to tip. If you stood there and they handed you the bagel, and that's where the confusion's coming from.
Right.
If they handed you the bagel and you said thank you and that was all that happened, you don't necessarily have to tip. But hey, if they said, hey, would you like to add some extra cream cheese with this flavor? It really goes well, and you found a new way to mix up your meal, I think that does deserve a little tip.
That's the extra
Yeah.
that you were talking about. Okay, when it comes to the salon, I think this is pretty standard, right? 20%.
Yeah.
But this is interesting. If someone else washes your
Yes,
hair,
I'm happy you brought that
or
up.
okay,
Multiple
what do you
steps
do?
and multiple people.
Are
Make
you
sure-
obligated 20%?
Well, you're obligated to thank you, and I recommend for you to do it in cash. So, for example, if you say, hey, she washed my hair, she dyed it. Here's an extra $5, here's an extra $10, whatever it may be.
Okay.
But give it directly to them, saying thank you to them. That way it doesn't end up in a big pot.
Right, interesting. Okay, concierge reservation. So what's your rule of thumb on that one?
If they were able to get you into a restaurant you naturally wouldn't be able to get into, please tip them. Even if
Okay.
it's $5, $10 something for the thank you of getting me in there. So
Okay.
I always like to appreciate them that way.
All right, and finally, housekeeping. That's a big dilemma too sometimes.
Tip every day there because it's different people that come to your room on a different
That's a
day.
good
So if
point.
you tip on the day that you're leaving, then that particular person's the only person that got to thank you. But if you tip even $5 in the, under the what's that lamp that you have on the side?
Oh, yeah, like the
it's
nightstand or
Yeah,
whatever.
put it
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the nightstand and then there you have it.
$5 a day?
If you can, yes.
Okay, got it.
I mean, you do know we leave messes behind. I mean, I know
And when
I
you have
did.
kids,
Especially a
that's
baby.
that's never enough,
Yes.
right, for the housekeeping. All right, and then real quick, bottom line: who do you not have to tip? Where it's not just you don't have to.
Again, back to that bad experience. I think there's anyone that you want, you can tip.
Got it.
But when you're coming back saying this is a terrible idea, don't tip. Don't feel obligated to tip. No one is paying your bills, so therefore it's your decision at the end of the day.
All right, Angelica, always good advice. Now to ask the expert here to answer your questions about tipping is financial expert Angelica Prescott. Okay, our first question. Everybody wants a tip these days. It seems like it's changed so much since COVID hit. Now I feel like I want to tip less. Am I the only one?
Not at all. This is called tip fatigue.
Yes.
Yes, we're seeing it in every facet, from someone coming to your door to drop off food to you just standing in line for 15 minutes and still having to give a tip. It's happening everywhere. So no, you are actually the norm.
Okay, and you don't have to feel obligated.
Not at all.
tip.
Not at all.
Unless you have that aha moment that we
Yes,
talked
have
about.
that extra experience with the individual that's beyond just the obligation of just serving you your food. And sure, you can show up with a tip. But if all you're doing is showing up to pick up a bag, not necessarily necessary.
Okay, next up, what can you do when tipping is not an option?
Well, in this case, I think we should use the technology we have available and use social media.
Yeah.
I'll use my example. So
Okay.
one time I was at a restaurant and I did not have enough cash, and that person told me when I asked them, are you going to receive the tip? They said, no, it just goes into a bucket and I get a little piece of it. So I said, all right, I don't have cash and I don't want it to go in a bucket because you're the best experience I've had thus far.
Yes.
Let me do a video of you, put it on my social media platform and say, hey, if you guys are coming to such restaurant, come and see this individual because they're the best and I have never had better service. I posted that out and that person's probably getting tips today.
I was going to say, I feel like that's more priceless.
Yes, yes.
Than, actually physically giving, $10 or who knows what.
It stops at 10. This can stop at 2 $2,000.
Never. Yes.
Or not at all.
You know what? Also, too, I've heard another, service person say that, you know what, the tip, you don't have to, just give me a great review.
Yes, and that goes far. Also, if you invite people to come to the restaurant after, that's another experience I like to give. Hey, I don't have a tip for you, but I'm going to come back again as a repeat customer and bring more people with me. And that generates business for everyone.
I love it. That's an aha moment, Angelica. Love it. Okay, Dawn from Mesa says, is it necessary to tip a manicurist that owns their own business? I always tip an employee of a salon. Great question.
It's a choice. At the end of the day, it's your dollars. You worked hard for them. Make a decision for yourself. Even though they're a business owner, that doesn't mean they don't have bills they have to pay. So if you want to tip them directly, sure, go for it. But it's only because they've given you that aha or that great experience. Or even if they're just consistent in giving you an awesome experience every time you go, you might as well.
When you love it, show it.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Lori from Phoenix says, what about tipping contractors who do a good job for you? Ooh, that's another good one.
I like that because that contractor can possibly be your connect for any time you need a different type of repair that they cover as well. So you never know, that tip might actually give you inside jobs.
Ooh, okay. Next one. I know you're supposed to tip people like your stylist for personal services, etc. But who else? Rideshare driver, grocery delivery, barista?
You call the shots. It's about you and how you experience them. If I had a barista that came and gave me therapy at the same time while giving me my nice, hey, here's an extra $300. I'm just kidding.
They wear many hats.
But my point is, make sure that you show love when they're giving you excellent service. Don't base it on the title of the person, base it on the experience they gave you.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, Angelica, thank you so very much. Excellent, excellent advice. Just yesterday, we told you about a new study making headlines in the weight loss community. Researchers from a health analytics company found people taking Mounjaro injections lost more weight and were more likely to reach specific weight loss targets than those who are taking Ozempic. The study agreed that both medications helped patients achieve weight loss, but Mounjaro was more effective. The maker of Ozempic criticized the study, saying it compares the diabetes version of the drug instead of the weight loss version. The study left many people wanting to know what's right for them, so let's ask the expert. Joining me now is Dr. Natasha Bouillon, National Director of One Medical. All right, first off, dive into more of what this study showed, and really, I want to get your reaction to it.
Yeah, so this was a head-to-head study of 18,000 adults, and essentially what it found was people who took Mounjaro compared to Ozempic, they ended up losing more weight and they lost weight faster. So after 1 year of taking Mounjaro, people would lose about 15% of their body weight compared to about 8% for people taking Ozempic. And now what I found really interesting about this study is exactly what you said. These medications are FDA approved for diabetes. They're not for weight loss. And yet the interesting thing is half the people in the study did not have diabetes. And so it just goes to show you that there are so many people who are taking these medications for weight loss alone.
Interesting. And we're going to get to the other weight loss drugs specifically intended for weight loss in a second. But I want you to break down the difference really then between Mounjaro and Ozempic.
Yes, so Mounjaro, it basically is the brand of a medication called tirzepatide. And essentially it acts on two hormones, GLP-1 and GIP, whereas Ozempic is the brand of a medication called semaglutide, and it acts on one hormone, GLP-1, that we hear a lot about. Essentially, both of these medications can help regulate your blood sugar, your insulin level. They help people feel full, and that's how people lose weight. The key difference is because Mounjaro acts on that second hormone, GIP, it actually helps with fat metabolism. And we think that is what ultimately led to a lot more weight loss. Now, the good news that came from this study is that the side effects were really similar for both groups. You know, you would think that Mounjaro is a stronger medication, maybe it'll have more side effects, but the study found the side effects were really similar, and both medications are safe to take.
Okay, so why is it that we always hear about Ozempic? And for people who are taking Ozempic, I mean, should they worry? Do you think they have to switch? Or?
They don't need to switch. Now, Ozempic is definitely the more popular medication, and that's because it was FDA approved first. So it was FDA approved back in 2017. It was for people with diabetes. And now people with diabetes noticed, wow, I'm losing a lot of weight on this medication. And then celebrities found out. And so then celebrities
and then it went wild.
They started advertising it, talking about it, and so it became really popular. It caught on. A lot of people taking it off label for weight loss. And now, you know, ultimately, Ozempic is a good medication. medication. So
Okay.
people who are taking it, they should continue to take it. It does work for diabetes. It does work for weight loss, even though it's off-label. But if somebody wants to switch, they can certainly talk to their doctor about the best option for them.
Okay, so let's talk about the drugs that you mentioned earlier that are specifically targeted for weight loss, and that is Zepbound and Wegovy.
Yes, those two drugs are kind of the sister drugs, Wegovy and Zepbound. So Wegovy is essentially semaglutide, whereas Zepbound is essentially tirzepatide. And those are actually intended and FDA approved for weight loss. Now, the key difference is Wegovy for weight loss is at higher doses. And so what I think would be the more interesting study is comparing the higher dose of Wegovy against Zepbound and see which one does better. My guess is that Zepbound would still perform better because, again, it acts on two hormones rather than one.
Oh, interesting. Much like, again, Mounjaro and Ozempic. Okay, so why, again, is it that we don't get a lot of love or hear a lot about Zepbound and Wegovy?
Yeah, it's really because I think it's because they were FDA approved recently. So they kind of came into the market in 2022, 2023. And so people are learning more and more about them.
Okay.
But you know, another factor is when choosing these medications, it ultimately isn't always up to the patient or even the doctor. It's based on what your insurance company will cover. And so for many people, Zepbound and Wegovy are not part of their formulary. They're not covered. And so especially if they have diabetes, they'll opt for Ozempic or Mounjaro instead. And if these medications are not covered by your insurance, the cash price is about $1,000 a month. So it's really unaffordable for a lot of people. And sometimes we're really just at the mercy of our own insurance plan.
Yeah, and what we can afford and not afford. But roughly, they all run about the same price.
They all run about the same price.
Okay. Wow. Time now to ask the expert. Here to answer your questions live on air about popular weight loss drugs is Dr. Natasha Bouillon with One Medical. And our first question, I want to get to Ginger because she had a good one during the commercial break.
Well, first of all, the discussion was so incredible, so much wealth of knowledge. And I mean, all of us, we know people that are on these two drugs, but you differentiated between folks with diabetes and folks trying to lose weight. So why would somebody who doesn't have diabetes take one of the diabetic medications instead of one of the other two options?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So when the study was done, this is back in 2021, 2022, what we were finding is that insurance companies sometimes would cover these medications even though they're intended for diabetes, they would cover them off-label. So if somebody had pre-diabetes and they're working on weight loss, we actually know that weight loss is one of the ways to prevent getting diabetes. And so if the doctor would write a prior authorization, insurance would cover that. And so for that group of people, it was a great reason to take it. Since then, because these medications are very expensive, insurance has really tightened the belt, and they're very strict on they'll only approve those diabetes meds for people with diabetes. And if you don't have diabetes and you want to take them, if your insurance has weight loss coverage, great, you're lucky. If your insurance doesn't have weight loss coverage, a lot of people don't, Medicare doesn't cover weight loss drugs, then people have to pay cash for these meds. And again, it's about $1,000 a month.
Woo!
And I'm sure you have to meet the criteria for your doctor to say, yes, you're in that obese class, and yes, we will provide
Exactly.
that
You have to have a certain BMI to meet the criteria. If you don't have a certain BMI, you have to have other health conditions to meet the criteria to get those meds. Yeah.
Okay, you got it?
Great
Yes,
question.
thank you. I
Thank
know, I'm
you,
always
Ginger.
listening over
I
there.
know, I love it. I love it. Okay, I appreciate it. Okay, I'll let you go back to weather.
All right.
Okay, next up, do I still need to eat better and exercise with it? And we're with it meaning Mounjaro.
Yes, and so, exercise and healthy eating are key to taking these medications. So the reason why is if you take these medications and don't make lifestyle changes, you won't actually see as many weight benefits. I think the other really important thing is we want people to maintain their muscle mass.
Okay.
So if you take these medications and you don't exercise, you might end up losing your muscle mass. That's not good for your health. We want people to eat plenty of protein. And so it's really the full package. It's not just the medication, but it's take the medications, eat lots of protein, exercise as well, just be healthy overall.
Okay, next up, is it a drug I need to take forever?
This is such a controversial question.
Yeah.
And the study, the results are a little bit mixed. What we do see is when people take these medications and then they stop, the majority of people actually end up regaining 2/3 of the weight.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people say, obesity is a chronic disease. We should take these medications chronically. You think about blood pressure. If someone has high blood pressure, we put them on medications, they generally take it their whole lives. They don't generally get off those medications. And really, the obesity meds are the same way. So a lot of doctors now are saying, yes, if you start these medications, they're intended to take potentially your whole life, unless you can make really aggressive lifestyle changes. I've had some patients taper off and regain some weight, but they're successful. I've had other patients continue it.
Wow. All right. Next up, are any of these drugs better for localized fat burning?
Yeah, so it tends to be that the dual acting, the ones that act on two hormones, are better for localized
Which
fat
is the
burning.
Mounjaro.
It's the Mounjaro, yeah, the Mounjaro and the Zepbound. That being said, for localized fat burning, it does help with fat metabolism, but you still have to do the work of like exercising, targeted exercise programs to get that benefit.
Okay, wow. All right, next up, if my doctor doesn't talk about it, how can I bring it up?
I love this question. You know, a lot of doctors are actually reluctant to prescribe these medications for a couple of different reasons. I think there's still a lot of bias against these medications because they want people to focus on exercise and diet. I think it's also some doctors, they don't want to offend their patients. Even if they have a high BMI and they're eligible, they don't want to bring it up unless the patient asks them. So certainly, if you're interested in these medications, please ask your doctor about it. I think the other important thing to remember is these medications also have benefits outside of just weight and diabetes. So the semaglutide meds, that actually can lower people's risks of heart attacks and strokes. And then the tirzepatide, it can improve people's sleep apnea. So there's a range of other benefits that we don't talk often enough about, and it's worth bringing up to your doctor if you have questions about it.
That sounds like another segment.
Yeah.
Okay, and by the way, it's not semaglutide, it's...
Semaglutide, just like tirzepatide.
We've been saying it wrong this whole time. All right, Natasha, you are amazing. We so appreciate you. Thank you. Today is Wellness Wednesday, and we want to talk about kids and helping them overcome the fear of failure. As parents, you know, it is so hard to see your child make a mistake, face challenges, or deal with frustration. But do you help them and intervene, or do you let them go through it and fail and learn how to bounce back? It can be easier said than done. So what do you do and how should you handle it? Let's ask the expert. Joining me now is family therapist Juliana Liddon. This is always so tough for both parties, right? For both the parent and the child. But you say that if they fail, you fail.
So here's what I mean by this. Most of us parents will agree with this. When our child fails, we feel in some way like it's a reflection on us.
Right.
Like, oh no, maybe the teachers are going to think we don't study at home,
Yeah.
we don't have a structure,
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. So it kind of starts with us.
I feel so, like, when you put it that way, it sounds so egotistical in a way. You know what I mean? Like how selfish of us, right?
Well, it's just natural.
Yeah.
It's very natural.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so
Completely.
what happens when you actually do let them fail?
When you let them fail, you're teaching them about disappointment. If this is the one thing you can teach your kids, you're going to put them on a path to success. Because think about it, if they learn to deal with disappointment, it's going to be so much easier for them moving forward. Think about all the disappointments we had to deal with from when we were a child to now.
Yeah.
And you're really going to be helping them in the long run, not crippling them.
And you say, don't even go in to rescue them.
Don't do it. Now,
So
I know,
hard.
Listen, I know that we all do to a certain degree.
Yes.
But when you rescue them, what you're basically saying is, I am so scared of failure that you're going to teach your child that somebody's going to pick them up every time. So they're learning to be entitled. And they're learning that failure isn't an option. I'm going to figure out how I don't have to fail. And we all know that failure is very valuable.
Right. Well, you say it's valuable and it's also the key to success.
It is. Here's why. When we fail, we learn to be creative. We learn to say to ourselves, okay, that didn't work, so what can I do to figure out how to be successful? We learn, right? You're going to see that person on the track in the Olympics and they fall, right? They're not going to just roll around and, you know, walk off. They're going to get up and do it again, and they're probably going to be back in 4 years. So we've got to learn that it really helps us to become more successful.
Okay, so show us how. What are some tips that parents can do?
Oh my gosh. Well, one of the things you need to do is learn to let go. Now, this is difficult, and I know that all of us hold on, but I ask parents to look within themselves. What is it about you that's making you hold on so hard? Right? And start to kind of unwind that. And I think when you do, it helps you to kind of take that pause and realize it's okay. if they fail once in a while.
I'm thinking in my mind, helicopter parent, right? Like, no, it's okay. I'm gonna catch you, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You also say that a failure is important sometimes.
Yes.
So not all the time.
Right.
So you can't. I have permission to help.
Yes, you have permission to help.
Yeah.
So I want you to start talking about it in your family. Like, hey, it's okay. It's okay to make the mistakes. It's okay to fail. And here's the question you want to always ask. Tell me what you learned from the mistake, from the failure, and share with them what you learned.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. And then they go, oh, okay, I can do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's not so bad.
I'm remembering there was one time. Okay, so I'm going to share real quick.
Good.
So my daughter, first time in Girl Scouts, went around the neighborhood. She practically got a door slammed in her face.
Oh, wow.
I mean, not slammed,
Right.
but it was a
That
little
hurts.
harsh. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, as Mama Bear, it was like,
Oh, yeah, don't do that.
But you know what? I just tried to like turn it into a positive and say, you know what? This is okay. You're going to be stronger for this.
That's right.
You had to go through this in
right.
order to just know how to handle. Not everybody is going to,
Right.
want to buy or support or what have you. So
Exactly.
it's okay. I could tell it stung.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's like when we get in the real world and we're doing cold calls.
Right.
You're
Yes.
in sales. Click. Or,
Yes, exactly. And it's like, ouch.
Yeah.
But then you got to get back
But you
up and
keep
call
going.
again. Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
Right. So I'm so glad that you kind of flipped that for her and said,
Yeah.
this is to be accepted or,
was hard.
happen once in a
So
while.
hard. Okay, Julianne, thank you. Always a therapy session on Wednesday. Time now to Ask the Expert, here to answer your questions live on air about helping your kids face their fears is life coach Juliana Litton. All right, our first one is from Paisley in Peoria. She says, my second grade son is getting held back. What should we do to help him?
Oh, that's hard, isn't
yeah.
it? And so I'm wondering here if it's the parents or the teachers, because that does make a big difference.
Yes.
But the most important thing you can do here is to really support him in this. Make sure he doesn't feel as if there's something wrong with him.
Yeah.
It's so common that this happens. And what I have found is when it's necessary, it's like a celebration because it takes all the load off the child. They get to kind of go through it again and
Yes.
it's less stressful. So you can really, play that up.
Versus struggling really hard, and that could be damaging too, right?
It sure
if you were to go on to
can.
third.
Right. So hey, buddy, this is going to be a bit easier. It's a little bit of an easy breezy time. So let's,
yeah, be positive.
be positive.
Jeremy in Phoenix says, my 6-year-old daughter Bailey is full of energy and very sweet and kind. She often gets anxious trying anything new, no matter how big or small. We encourage her to try and support her the best we can. Is it mainly the fear of the unknown or the fear of failing? Oh,
It can be both.
yeah.
And so I would say look at you as the parent and see how you're handling that. So if you kind of have, like we were talking about in the segment, a bit of this, holding on tight because you don't want them to fail,
Yes.
it's like osmosis.
Yeah,
It
yes.
can kind of leak into their little
Right, they can
world.
feel it.
Right, so there can be a bit of that and just kind of put yourself in check there, but it's also very normal, that unknown. So you just want to make sure you're really supporting them and letting them know, hey, it's okay, we can take it slow.
Yeah.
Move into this gradually and just be that kind of gentle support.
Yeah. Oh, Juliana, thank you so very much. And thanks to our viewers for texting us. Thanks for watching. Be sure to follow our YouTube channel for more content and watch the Ask the Expert segment weekdays at 4 p.m. and right here on our 12 Plus app.